Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Modern Moms Roadmap to Balance podcast. I'm Kayla Nettleton, your host, and today I have a very special guest, Kris Cazares Neri. She's an energy intuitive and coach to soul-led entrepreneurs and creatives. She helps women to reclaim their empowerment, activating the remembrance of their soul's beauty and mission through their work. She believes we are each our own greatest healer, and she loves to empower the women who know they are here to make a positive difference in the world with the healing tools to lead lives of alignment and joy. Hello, Kris. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Kayla. It feels I have butterflies just hearing you read that. Thank you for that. It was nice hearing it
Of
come from you.
course. Yes, I love reading everyone's bio and getting to just put their work out there into the world.
I really appreciate it. It's such a pleasure to be here.
And so with every guest I have, I always ask them the question, what is your definition of a balanced life?
Mm. A balanced life. Ooh, every mom,
Mm.
right, has contemplated that before. I love that question. And I'm gonna refer to something I read recently as I really try to
Hmm.
learn from Indigenous studies. And something I picked up from a book
Mm.
recently I really liked is that we all have these different aspects of our life. For example, community, ceremony, connection to
Yeah.
land, movement. There's all these different, so if we want to think of ourselves in the middle of all these like different bubbles. And to me, balance is using my intuition to understand what areas of life my energy is being poured
Mm.
into, and also using my intuition to, without judgment, really analyze what areas of my life could use a little more of my energy to help me bring
Okay.
myself into fullness and into wholeness. So it's not like this constant desire to like have everything
Mm.
perfect all the time and everything in balance all the time, and to accept
Yeah.
that over time there are going to be seasons of my life that certain areas are going to be more prevalent. And I think the whole picture of that really helps bring me into balance and using my
Mm.
intuition to really discern where my energy can go to my benefit.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I think a lot of moms are very much concerned with balance being giving equal of their time and energy to all of these different areas when that's not necessarily the case because we just don't always have 100% to give and be able to split that up. Sometimes we only have maybe 25% to give
Yeah.
to something, and it's being able to split those things up. And so I love your definition. Do you happen to remember the name of that book that
I
you
wish I
got this
could, but how
inspiration
about
from?
I look it up and I could share it with you if you want to include it in the notes or
Yes,
something.
yes. Yes, absolutely. Yes, please share. And
It
so
was
I'm
just
really glad
gifted
that
to
you
me,
brought up,
so
okay. I'm really glad that you brought up intuition because that has been coming up a lot lately in terms of, well, how do I get in touch with my intuition? I think this is a question that many women and moms are asking themselves because the the term intuition is coming up more, and I know it's not a new concept,
yeah.
but it's now something that people are, wanting to learn about. So can you give a little bit more about what you mean by intuition and how maybe women can tap into that?
Yes. To me, intuition is really the voice of our soul, the voice of that
Mm.
spark of life within every one of us that makes us, and that spark of life is unique, right? From me to you to every single person out there. And to me, it also comes from something greater. The definition of that is open to
Mm.
each and every one of us and can be interpreted differently, and that's totally okay. But I believe that this spark of light within us that comes from something greater has knows the answers, knows
Mm.
what is in the highest good for us in this lifetime, knows what direction we should go in life, knows that we need
Yeah.
to take a right instead of a left at this light sometimes, knows what people to avoid and which people you're magnetized to,
Mm.
knows when it's time for rest and when it's time for action. And so, I think that we're so taught to always look
Mhm.
outside of ourselves for answers of what is right for us in our
Yes.
lives. And so, it is quite the journey, like learning how to step
It can
away
be.
from the running of the mind and learning how to soften into the intuition of the
Hmm.
heart. And one of the simplest ways that we can begin to do that is setting aside time to be able to invest our energy in that relationship, right? We talked
Hmm.
about pouring our energy into certain areas of our life.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of times we feel our intuition nudging us, begging for
Mm.
our attention, and it comes up, when you just feel like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing something else, or I just have this nagging feeling, like it's almost like this
Mm.
unsettling feeling, like something is supposed to be different, or I don't know, I just feel
Mm.
restless. That's
Yeah.
often us not because we haven't been taught, not paying attention to our intuition. And so the way
Hmm.
we can begin to start doing that is really setting aside time to be in silence, whether that be prayer or meditation, or if we
Mm.
have our own practices like a morning routine. And it's in that spaciousness where you sit in that silence that you can begin
Mm.
to really nurture that relationship and take it from there.
Mm. Yeah. I often tell people this. Just give yourself some space. And I even tell them, set a timer for 5 minutes. Just give
Yes.
yourself 5 minutes and see what comes up for you. What's going on for you within your body? What sensations are coming up? What thoughts or images? Because, like you said, we haven't necessarily been taught to look inward because
Yeah.
we've been taught to probably do what your parents told you. Listen to your boss, listen to your partner, listen to your kids, right? All of these things, but not necessarily listen to that voice within you that is trying to lead you in a specific direction.
Yeah, it's funny is when I really began my journey with my intuition, at the time I had a toddler and a newborn. And my daughter,
Mm,
actually, she was an infant at this time. And I was struggling, and I mean really struggling.
mm,
And at the time I had a photo mentor, which is really funny because the photo mentor, because I used to be well, I still am a professional photographer technically, but I used to own a wedding photo and video studio. So I was a very
okay.
busy like
Oh, I
photographer,
bet.
very overwhelmed,
Mm,
not in touch with my intuition and not living my purpose, which is to help people
mm.
heal and remember their own empowerment. And the mentor that I chose, she was incredibly spiritual. So I was just magnetized to her and the way she works, the way she talks, because she had that undercurrent that I actually was really attracted to. What I discovered in that was that I was ready to move past professional photography, but it
Mm,
awakened the spiritual part of myself. It helped to awaken the spiritual part of myself.
mm.
And so what she taught me is something that literally changed my life. And it was a 3-minute meditation. And it
Oh,
kind of
three
seems
minutes.
like a 3-minute meditation. And it kind of seems like, I think when we think meditation, we picture men on a mountain meditating for like days and, being a
Yes.
hermit and not talking to
Like
anybody,
hours and hours.
hours and hours. And
Yeah.
we're like, wait, dude, I'm a mom. I got to go take my kids to school in a little bit. Like
Yes.
the laundry is dirty. I'm exhausted. The kitchen's a disaster. There's dishes there. And so we think, oh, I can't do that. And so at least those are the stories that I was telling
Hmm.
myself back then. And so, but then I was like, you know what? I got nothing to lose. I can only go up from here. And so I started doing this 3-minute meditation and it changed my life. And so
Wow.
do not underestimate if you can just make like a little
Mm.
bit of space in your life, what is filled, the beauty and the energy that it fills that time up, it really starts to expand and like weave its way into your life. It's worth the
Hmm.
investment.
It is. It really is. And like those stories can be so powerful. The ones that we tell ourselves that we don't have time or we
Yeah.
can't do it because of some, fault or our mind is running too much. These are very powerful stories. And when you were saying that, like I was getting goosebumps because I have been denying myself of some of this time also, even though I'm someone who very much shouts this to anyone who will listen to give yourself the space. And I haven't been giving myself the space. So that was just like an enlightening moment of, yeah, I don't need to spend hours. It doesn't need to even be 30 minutes. It can be three to
Yeah.
5 minutes. That's it. And if we cannot find 3 to 5 minutes to give ourselves, there are so many other things that need to be worked on. So you definitely need those 3 to 5 minutes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. I really relate to that too. I'm always preaching. I'm an ex-burnout professional
Mm,
artist. Like I know all about the burnout. And so I'm always
yeah.
preaching rest. And so I have found that what happens when we are the mentors, when we are the teachers, when we
Hmm.
are the healers, when we are teaching and sharing our message, life shows up to initiate us. And it's like, hey,
Hmm.
you gonna do this? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so mine has been rest lately. It's like, are you
Mm,
gonna rest? Because you're really sharing that message. And
hmm.
I'm not perfect. Sometimes it's more difficult than others, but I have seen the benefits that happen when you really listen to your body, as you said, bringing your body in and tapping in with that. Um, I'm sorry, I don't know if you said that when we're recording or not, but you mentioned the wisdom of sitting with the body. And so, yeah, that I can relate to that.
Mm, hmm. So, what did that spiritual awakening look like for you? Because I think people have like a specific image in their mind of this like grand spiritual awakening that they have. But what did yours look like for you?
Mm, that's a really good question. And, my story is very deep. And I think you're right. A lot of times we think it's like this very dramatic thing. And I'll be honest, mine was a little bit dramatic. When I became a mother, when my son was born, I, in labor, experienced very spiritual visions, and
Mm,
I was unmedicated. And at the time, I didn't really think anything of it, but I was kind of like, what happened there? What I really know now is that like motherhood
mm,
really brought me into this next phase of my life where I would
mm,
become a healer and would become a mentor. But when things really started to shift for me was about when my daughter was born. So 2 years later,
okay.
I'll share a story here, and it's
Sure.
a beautiful story. I don't think it's the first time I've shared it publicly, but I was sitting on my bed meditating. I just got the nudge. I was with my family
Mm,
with my husband on the couch. My kids were playing. I got the nudge to go meditate. And so I go in the room, and at this time I was just beginning my meditation practice. And my son was jumping on the bed next to me, typical mom meditation attempt.
mm.
But I didn't, I was just trying to drop into that space. And something happened that completely changed my life. And I saw the Divine Mother.
Mm.
Literally, like, saw and felt the
Wow.
Divine Mother. And then I felt what I can only explain as like a guide, and he felt like a native, native to the Americas, whether that be Mexico or America. I could feel a guide next to me.
Mm,
And what proceeded to happen was what I can only call like an initiation. For healers, sometimes your palm chakras are really where like healing
mm,
energy comes out. And I had an experience where I
mhm.
felt those open and I felt light. And then I got scared. Like it was so visceral, so real, so
Wow.
literal that, and my son's just jumping on the bed
Mm,
next to me. I kind of like shook myself out of it. Like, oh,
mm,
what is that? And so I'm
yeah.
kind of in a daze, and I go and I sit with my husband and I go, babe, like this thing just happened to me. And at the time I had been exploring energy healing because it was something that had always interested me. And I was like, I think I'm supposed to do this. Well, little did I know that that one experience was going to rock my world for like a year. I would just every day I was like, what happened to me? I can't understand this. What is going on here?
Mm,
It kind of felt like, we all have this ego and there's like this perception of what the world is and what is like what life is. And I
yeah.
felt like the walls all came down and like the abyss
Mm,
of the cosmos was there. And it was really ungrounding. It kind of sent me into like a dark night of the souls. I tried to understand this experience.
mm,
It was my ego and my heart battling. My ego was like, I don't
yeah.
understand. No, don't take me down this road. I'm going to be a photographer forever. And then my heart was like, no, you're not. You are
Yeah.
going to be a healer. You're going to empower women. You're going to remind them who they are.
Mm,
And so the dark night was really my heart and my intuition
mm,
battling over control. And
wow.
so, yeah, it was a long journey. It was a very
Mm,
long journey, but I changed my life because of that experience. Eventually, I was like, it was really hard for me to realize that I didn't want to be a professional wedding photographer anymore. I had a very successful studio. I built my, not built my house. I purchased my house with this business. I'm very
Mm.
proud of what I built. So my ego was so attached to it. So my ego had a hard time letting go of that identity. So yeah, it's deep. And there's so many other stories mixed in there, but that's really the one that kind of like
Mm.
catapulted me off. I picture one of those giant
Yeah,
old
yeah.
school, like medieval catapults, like
Like,
shoo, bye,
yes.
Christina.
No, I
Yeah.
love that. I thank you so much for sharing because I know there's not always safe spaces to share stories like that.
Yeah.
And I always hope that I can create safe spaces for people to share because if we're not sharing, then people don't recognize that these things can happen,
Yeah.
these kinds of experiences. And sometimes, like you said, when you have an experience like that yourself, it can be very scary because
Yeah.
you're like, what just happened? Is there something wrong with me? And
Yes.
so thank you so much for sharing because I know if someone has experienced that and they're hearing your story, that can give them so much validation in what they've experienced for themselves.
Yeah, and I really only share that story when my intuition tells me it's okay to. I don't
Mm,
share it everywhere. I don't share it with anybody. But what got me through some of those darkest nights was actually podcasts. And I
mm,
started looking on there for other,
yeah.
spiritual people. I actually was searching everywhere. I even went to a Catholic priest because I was raised Catholic to try to understand this. And of
Okay.
course, they're
Yeah.
telling me like it's not good, things that my
Oh,
intuition was like, no, that's not true. And so I kept
yeah.
searching. And it was podcasts that really gave me that breath of life and like that
Mm,
rope to hold on to in my dark night of knowing that I'm going to make it out of this. Things are going to make more sense one day and I am safe. And so, yeah, podcasts are a beautiful thing. So thank you for this.
yes. And one of the things that I want to also highlight that you had said before your story was that motherhood kind of opened you up to have this experience. And a lot of the times, I think there's fear around motherhood is going to get in the way
Mm,
of me having certain experiences when it really can unlock your potential.
wow. Yes, man. Okay. What's funny is like, yeah, motherhood is going to get in the way. Motherhood is going to get in the way of you being who you used to be. That's for sure.
Yes.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
but that's life. Like, life is about changing and
Mm,
evolving and flowing and growing. And so for me, motherhood really helped me to become more of myself. And it was not
mm,
always easy. I had postpartum depression. I had a really hard time. When I became a mother, all of my repressed childhood things came up that I
mm.
had forgotten
Yeah.
about. I'm the oldest of 6 kids in a Mexican family, and I had a lot of responsibility.
Mm,
And there was so many of us that being a needy, sensitive child who was actually going through her own spiritual experiences, I didn't have anybody to talk to. I was scared a lot because
mm.
I was confused a lot by what was happening to me, what I
Yeah.
could feel. And I was taking care of everybody all the time. And so when I became a mother, all these things that I had kind of boxed up and put inside, it kind of like all came out to the
Mm,
surface for me to heal. But I'm so thankful
yeah.
for that now. And that you're a mom, like my children are the most precious, amazing things that ever happened to me. And the process of becoming a mother is also like its own initiation into a new dimension of motherhood, really,
Hmm.
of womanhood.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it is. It is. It's a, unless you're a mother yourself, however you define that,
Yeah.
you just cannot understand what it's like to be a mom
Yeah.
because it's impossible to wrap your mind around this pool and this the space that gets taken up by the care and love and worry that you have for the children, your children that are your now responsibility and you love them.
Totally. You know, with me going back to like how it brought up all these old childhood things, I started telling myself stories like that. Like, oh my gosh, I don't have time to be, I'm
Mm,
an artist, I'm a creative person. I don't have time for that. I need space. I can't be by myself. Blah, blah. I was telling myself all of these things and I was struggling with them. And it
mm,
wasn't until my daughter was born, and she is fire energy. She's me. Of course, she's her own person, but we're very similar. She is creative. When she
Mm,
focuses on a project, she is like, she will draw for hours. She's intense. She's
wow.
got big feelings.
Mm,
And I didn't have any of the tools to emotionally deal with that. And so I would crumble. And so it
mm,
was motherhood that showed me, hey, like you could use help with emotional maturity, you know?
mm.
And so I started allowing motherhood to teach me instead of fighting the lessons that motherhood was
Wow.
trying to show me. And that changed me so much.
Mm,
That's when I started doing, that was coincided with the time I was doing the 3-minute meditation.
okay.
And I was able to develop, and I've changed so much as a person since that. Since I
Wow.
started allowing motherhood to teach me and to shape me instead of
Mm,
fighting it.
that what a reframe for motherhood. Because I think oftentimes we are fighting with it. We are
Yeah.
fighting with the experience of motherhood instead of allowing us to I'm just going to say let her teach us.
Yeah.
Let motherhood teach us and show us the lessons that we need to work through and learn.
Yeah. And I'm still working on it, you know? Like
Mhm.
patience was one for me. I feel I'm still working on that one, but I'm so proud of my growth, and I am not the same person I used to be.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to that topic of energy that we were
Mm,
talking about before we started hitting the record button. I know we've talked a little bit about it, but we were talking about energy and how that's also related to our like want to balance. And there was something that I had read on your website that I'm going to just read really quick. One of the things that you stated in your website was like helping people to take action from a place of balance and not
mhm.
exploitation of your body, mind, spirit, and integrity. And I
Yeah.
just loved that. Absolutely loved it. And so, can
Thank
you
you.
like go and explain what was like your thought process when you even just use the word exploitation, like not
Mhm.
exploiting ourselves?
Yeah. Thank you, Kayla. Thank you for that. Yeah, as I had mentioned in my previous business, I was exploiting all the things. I was exploiting my
Mm,
body. I was shooting and I was so thankful for the jobs I had. I worked hard to I was shooting Indian weddings and very luxurious multi-day Indian
mm,
weddings.
wow.
I'm proud of the work that I did. But there came a point where it was motherhood again, where all the energy that went into that was really exploiting my body. I mean, my back is, from carrying cameras for hours and hours and
Mm,
hours. I mean, sometimes I was like 14 hours a day. I've had an 18-hour day before.
wow.
And I did it because I thought, oh, that's what a good hardworking photographer does.
Mm,
I exploited my creativity for money. And I'm not saying that we can't make money off of our gifts. That I do. Yes, you can. We deserve to also have
yes.
that reciprocal relationship where here's something that I can offer you, and we can all be in reciprocity together that way.
Hmm. Absolutely.
But I exploited all the things, and even my time away, I was always missing family events on the weekends. I
Mm,
was working Monday through Friday. My kids were home at the time because they were little. But once they went to school, it was like they were only off on the weekends. And then my husband started having a traditional schedule as well. So I was just always missing everything. And I
mm,
was valuing this business and the work that I was doing more than the most important things in my life, like my body,
mm,
like my spirit, where I'm investing my energy, my children. And so with my new business, I
mm,
have been incredibly intentional about creating a new foundation, because the foundation that I built my previous business, Anza Photo and Film, on was a lot of toxic things, like,
mm.
the customer is always right, which there is
Yeah.
obviously mutual respect. And I always treated my clients with the utmost respect. And I did attract the best of the best, by the way. I feel like I
Mm,
always attracted great people, but I felt like I always had to bend over for everything, even when it was going
sure.
to hurt my family, even when it was time away
Mm,
from them. And so I always made being the nice person who wanted to make everybody happy, people pleasing traits.
mm,
And I got to a place where I was like, wait, this does not work anymore. This is not sustainable. The
Mm-hmm.
thing about business and about being a woman in business is we have to relearn what it means to be a
Mm.
service provider, to be a creative, to be an artist, what it
Yeah.
can be, and start rejecting the old, outdated models that came from like
Mm.
post-colonial, I
Yeah.
industrial concepts. And this is not the way we are intended. I mean, Kayla, you have a gift and you help people and you work with people. Your services are needed. And I
Mm.
do not think that we were all given these gifts to go out and exploit ourselves for what we are
Yeah.
told is the normal. And there are so
Mm.
many women who are starting to work in new ways and starting to work in ways that honor their body, mind, and
Hmm.
spirit, honor their motherhood, honor their time in a
Yeah.
different way. And it's not from like this protective place of like, ew, business, stay away from me. Like this is my family time. It's
Yeah.
just this holistic process. I do not see myself as an entrepreneur separate from myself as a creative, separate from myself as a mother, separate from
Mm.
myself as a wife, as being a whole person. I see it all jumbled together and mixed together. And I think
Yeah.
that's a much more natural and holistic way of looking at business and at being an entrepreneur than what we have been traditionally taught.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Like everything you said. And how what would you tell someone who is trying to get reconnected with that place? How can someone start recognizing, okay, what are these things that are important to me? What are my values?
Yes, I think that one of the best things we can do is invest in the time, right? Like we said, 5 minutes,
Mhm.
and just simply check in with your body. I think that our bodies are one of the first things to scream at us when something needs to change.
Mm.
And we run from it. We hide, we distract ourselves with noise, with a busy schedule, with, we're trying to run, run, run.
Yeah.
If we can sit with our bodies and just breathe into our body for a minute and then ask, what is it that needs my attention right now?
Mm.
Oftentimes, I think we can all do this on our own, but maybe sometimes we need guidance in the beginning, and that's okay too. We're going to know something. Something is going to come to the surface and it's going to show up in a
Mhm.
thought, in a picture, in a memory. And that is your body speaking to you. And maybe
Mhm.
it's saying, you're really tired. What you really
Mhm.
want is to run your business 4 days a week, not 3 days a week, because you feel like you don't have any time for your home and your family. So Fridays are for your home and family, something like that. So once you discover
Yeah.
where the discomfort is in your body, then you can start to say, okay, you know what I'm feeling? I'm feeling tired. Then you
Mm.
can start incorporating a plan. How can I invest more, make more space for me to rest? And how can I have boundaries around that space? How can I protect that space like it is a newborn baby? Like
Mm.
it's life or death type of situation.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think we can all start. And no matter how far along you are on your healing journey, on a spiritual journey, that's a tool that we can come back to and need reminders of all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that this is a very simple concept, but it definitely takes practice because the
Yeah.
simplest things are usually not the easiest, which
Yes.
is why I think a lot of us are often searching for, sure, sure, but like, just give me the answers, right? Like,
Yes.
yes, I know I could do this, but just tell me what to do. When that's going back to, we're looking at the outside for the answers and not inside within us.
Yes, totally. And I think that's natural because we've been conditioned to know that,
Mm.
the easy answers come outside. Like, oh, this person says they have all the answers for me. Here's this 3-step process to absolute success for the rest of my life. Like, that's going to be it. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to invest in that. And all of these things are wonderful, but they're tools. They're not the real answers.
Mm.
And it's not sustainable. Like, I think that any good healer, mentor is always showing people how to tap into their own authentic power so that
Yeah.
they can, it's sustainable because, I believe in investing in coaching, like, and I will forever, in mentorship, and I will forever, but I use it as a tool and not as the decider of my growth and my success, because I myself am the decider of my growth and my success, and I am led by my
Mm.
intuition. And so I think that, yeah, we all have that within us, and it does require practice at the beginning, and I had to have people hold my hands. I invested in my own mentors that helped me with that process until I felt more sure on my feet. And then once you're sure on your feet, you have a lifelong skill of being able to come back to that place. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such an empowering concept to recognize that all of the answers are within you.
Yeah.
You just have to learn how to pay attention and listen to those answers, to give yourself the opportunity to look within.
I also think that it's not always in the way that we think it's going to be, too. And even I am an intuitive energy guide. I'm a mentor, I'm a teacher. My intuition is always at the forefront of everything I do. And I still have moments where I'm like, I'm confused, like it's
Yeah.
normal. It's the human experience. We are human. We have a brain. We
Mhm.
have an ego. We've got
Yeah.
distractions. We have programming. We've got all these things. And so it's normal to like, I guess what I'm saying is that we need to like soften into it when things are hard and to say like, hey, I'm human. I'm trying my best. It's okay. Because it's the fighting.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, what's
Mhm.
my intuition telling me? Like that tense energy actually pulls us away from our
Yeah.
intuition.
Mm.
And so for me, that's been one of my biggest lessons. It's like softening into it
Ooh.
when it is hard. It's okay. And then eventually the dust
Yeah.
settles and then things get more clear.
Do you often find when you're having an experience like that, it's because you're looking for like an answer to be something specific? Like you want it to be this answer of, no, I should work 4 days a week, or you know what I mean? Like something
Mhm.
specific, like you're almost like you're wanting to control what your intuition is telling you.
Absolutely. I think that we all do that. We all want things to look a certain way. Even when I was starting to hear the voice of, okay, well, let me set the foundation for this. But when I used to have my business, I would have moments where, the bride was about to walk down the aisle and
Mm.
I felt spirit all around me. And I was like, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right
Mm.
now. That voice that was so fulfilling and beautiful started to shift to, you don't want to be here right now. And I was like, what? No. Mm-mm. No, that's not true. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm going to be doing this forever. I want to own a wedding photo video studio forever. Eventually I won't shoot. Other people will shoot for me, which I did have. I did have like other photographers, but I was like, I had this whole thing in my head of exactly what it was going to look like. And then even
Mm.
when I started to believe the voice a little bit, I started to shift it like, okay, well, maybe I'm not going to do weddings. Maybe I'm just going to do family portraits forever. And, I'm going to have this kind of client and so it takes a while for us to kind of hone in, especially when we're just starting to open the doors to our intuition. And I think that's totally
Mm.
normal. And that's a part of the process and it's
Yeah.
totally okay.
Yes. It is. And as you were saying that, I'm trying to like, what was coming up for me as you were saying that? Um,
Do you know what if I can add one more thing to that actually,
yeah.
that is coming up is that clarity comes from action. And
Yes.
so sometimes we just have to take the action, even if it's imperfect.
Mm.
So we actually not sometimes all the time. Like life
Yeah.
is this thing where we have to contribute energy to it. Like we have to take little action, follow the breadcrumbs. The thing about intuition
Mm.
is you're only going to see one tiny step in front of you at a time. Sometimes people think intuition and intuitive and they say, "Oh my gosh, do you see like the whole plan for me? Like do you see all my future? Do you
Mm.
see?" And then I can say like, no, but what I do see is that this relationship in your life is keeping you stuck and you know what I mean? It's not
Mm.
exactly
Yeah.
what we want to, what spirit, what the universe wants to communicate to us
Yeah.
is not what we want to hear sometimes, but it's going to get us there if we are going to surrender to receiving
Mm.
and to flowing with it. And so sometimes we have to take that imperfect action for that vision and that clarity to really start to hone in and become more specific.
Yes. Yes. I love it. And I think I needed that to help with what I was trying to say. With we're not going to see like all of the steps, but it also takes time to really be able to hone in on what is our intuition, what is the like intuitive voice trying to guide us versus our own like ego, our own voice that's trying to, take us in a different direction and being able to differentiate between those.
Yeah. And I can kind of offer a little tip around this as well. So I'm trained as a Reiki master. I don't exactly call the work I do Reiki because my ancestors didn't call it Reiki. Reiki is actually a very
Mm,
specific tradition from Japan, and this is universal. And so I like to just call it energy healing. But I am trained, of course. And even going through that and going through the process of being trained with other very intuitive women, I'm telling you, everybody struggles with believing that the things that they
mm,
already see in their daydreams, in their gut feelings, is actually their intuition speaking to them. And so, what I always am reminding people of is your intuition is talking to you all the time. Like you haven't been not in touch
mm.
with it. It can never leave you. It
Yeah.
is a part of you. You don't need to be a psychic. You don't need to be a medium. You don't need to be a healer. It is a natural part of who we are as energy, as souls.
Hmm.
When you're kind of driving in the car or you're in the shower and you have like a random thought or you see a random picture, like a direction for your life, but you kind of it kind of flutters away or you ignore it or you're
Mm.
like, huh, and then you just kind of move on into your habits and ignore that
Yeah.
little picture. Those are really powerful moments where our intuition speaks
Mm.
to us because when we're going into autopilot, like driving and like taking a shower, is it kind of allows us to access a certain part of our brain where the intuition can more clearly communicate with us. And so my
Mm.
advice is start to pay attention to those little flickering moments where you see a direction, you
Yeah.
see a picture, you have a feeling. This is also why we get great ideas in the shower and in the car because we're kind of like in that
Yes.
mental space.
Yes. We're not in the forcing space.
Yeah, exactly.
So, can you talk a little bit about what you do, maybe some of your offerings? I'm sure that someone listening might be thinking, "Oh, I really want to work with Kris. What would that look like? What are their options?"
Yes, yes. So first and foremost, I invite them to come follow me on Instagram. I've been doing a lot of like readings on there where I'll pull a card and give like a
Mm,
little reading. But in addition to that, I have a podcast. It's called Kris Caz the Podcast, and it is anywhere you
okay.
listen to your podcasts and on YouTube. I believe that this episode is going to be coming out the week that my program Flourish is starting. And
Mm,
so, if you are listening to this in a timely manner when it comes out, I want to invite you to get in touch with me because Flourish is going to be an 8-week transformative
mm,
experience where you're going to become intimate with your highest self, with the voice of your soul. Your intuition is going to take a front seat in your life for 8 weeks. That energy we were
mm,
talking about, this is the opportunity to really focus that energy on your intuition and where we can really learn how to become closer to that to the our highest selves to that and step into the
mm.
highest timeline in our lives. And so we're going to do that together and flourish, and so I invite you to check that out. And if we can do this in a timely manner, I am going to include a promo code below for you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what about your one-on-one offerings? Do you have
Yes.
those? What would that look like?
I do have one-on-one offerings. It's a little difficult for me to speak on them right now because they're actually in a transformation phase.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yes, but please keep in touch. I have a website with an email list, and everyone who's on my email list always gets the most up-to-date information. I am customizing and changing. This is led by my intuition. It's time for them to go through an evolution and upgrade to
Mm,
really change as I have changed so much in even just 1 year. And so those are in a transformative stage. But if you are curious about what those are going to look like and being a part of that, follow or join my email list.
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kris, for all of the wisdom that you've shared today. And I know it's going to help at least one listener.
Yeah. Do you want to draw a card, or I forgot to ask you about that?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay.
This is a
Shorter
bonus
and
if you're still
sweet.
listening.
Bonus. If you're still listening, you get to have a card. Maybe this message is for you today. Okay. So when I draw a card, I am just asking for the most loving, positive guidance to help guide us in our life in the highest direction. Okay. I think I pulled this on the last podcast. Be present. Okay, so the way I
Wow.
work is I'll start to kind of read from this, but I will flow from there. Be present. You are alive within the great field of unified consciousness, and this great field of unified consciousness is alive within you. You are not separate from this field. It is you, and you are it. At the truest and most authentic level, everything is perfect as it is now, just as everything is unfolding flawlessly and for your ultimate benefit. To the linear human mind, this presents a paradox. If it's already perfect, why should you take constructive action or draw upon your power to change your situation for the better? To the divine mind, which you are inseparable, both can be true. It cannot be perfect, and you can choose to create positive change. Your situation will immediately benefit when you come into true presence. This means accepting and allowing what it is now in its entirety, including what takes place within and around you. You do not fight against it, and you do not tell stories about what it is, what it isn't, or what it should or shouldn't be. So what's really coming through for me right now is actually coming back to the intuition. And as we are exploring our connection to the voice within, one of the most powerful ways of activating that is learning how to be present. The intuition is always alive in the present moment. The intuition isn't in the past. The intuition isn't in the future. And so if we can begin to draw on our tools like prayer or meditation or journaling to practice our muscles, the muscle of our minds, the muscle of our spirits, the energy of learning how to bring ourselves to the present moment, that's where you hear the voice of your intuition more intensely. Instead of it being a whisper, it comes through more strong. And so pay attention to those little moments where you feel really present and use those spaces to tap into your intuition and to help guide you in your life. So be present.
Thank you. It's almost
Thank
like,
you.
oh yes, we were supposed to talk about this during the podcast. Even the
Yes,
universe said
exactly.
so.
They're like, you forgot this. We're going to throw this in there for
Yeah.
you.
Yes, but thank you so much for that. I know that was a great bonus for ending this
Yeah.
episode.
Thank you so much, Kayla. It's been such a pleasure.